You're listening to Exposure on Radio X. I'm John Kennedy, and that is Razorlight with Zombie Love. It's the opening track to the brand new album, Planet Nowhere, which has just come out. And I'm very pleased to say that I have Johnny and Björn from Razorlight here with me in the studio. Hello.
Good evening. Good day.
It's great to see you.
Good morning. What time is it?
It's whatever time people are listening.
Yeah,
in a way. No, because now
true,
you can
true.
listen whenever you like, which is a delight. So, Johnny, you were actually here only a few months ago in your Jealous Nostril role when you were talking about that band.
That's true,
And you
yes.
did mention at the time that Razorlight was up and running, that there was more on the way. And here it is, the new record, the 5th album by Razorlight. It's kind of been a long time coming because this is the first new album from the lineup that is on this record since 2008. That's right, isn't it?
That's right, yeah.
So, I mean, there's so much to talk about, but I guess the first thing we should hear about is about Zombie Love. Tell us about Zombie Love.
Well, yeah. So it was quite in jeopardy, the whole concept of doing another Razorlight album, because, I mean, we love playing together and we got the old lineup back together and we love playing live. I mean, I love playing live with Razorlight. It's a very hard-hitting rock and roll experience. And we're great, and we don't cheat, and we don't play with click tracks, all that kind of stuff. It's a real, backing tracks, etc. It's a real live, visceral experience, and
the proper band experience. We don't see a lot of.
Yeah, exactly. But however, I think just doing that and going into a world of, heritage.
The modern heritage circuit.
The modern heritage circuit. Yeah, that didn't seem very appealing. So really, I said to the guys, like, okay, we're going to go out to Spain. We're going to record with youth. If we don't get any music that we feel as excited about as we did when we were making those first couple of albums, then we're going to have to stop. Right, because we're not going to go around and just keep, let's repackage that album. It was 20 years, and then, it's 20 years, and then it's going to be 25 years, and then it's going to be 30 years, and just, what is that, right? I would prefer, on a personal level, given the choice, I would prefer to play to 50 people, well, maybe it's more, but with Jealous Nostril in Huddersfield, and no offence to Huddersfield, I like that place, right? Then play a huge tour, going out and playing the nostalgia stuff, right? So it was kind of in the balance, and we went out to Spain, and I didn't actually have that much confidence in it. I thought it's very possible this isn't going to work.
Because we had tried before. We'd been trying and it wasn't quite, we weren't getting it right. So, yeah, it did feel a bit like...
Yeah, it was like
a bit last ditch attempt.
Yeah, exactly. Because we got
not for lack of trying. We'd really been.
But the band was
Zombie Love.
It's like we got the band together. We're all here. So cue fireworks, and it wasn't necessarily happening. It wasn't like suddenly. It was great playing live again, but in terms of writing new stuff, it wasn't necessarily like exploding. So we went to Spain, and we went out. We had pretty much no material as far as I was concerned. We had a song called Happiness that, the record. I mean, I wrote it with Björn. It's a good song, but I put a bit of a naughtily, overly cheesy chorus in there, and it was the kind of song that our record companies and stuff were going like, "Oh, this is great," and I was thinking, "No, it's not." And their producers and stuff, they're like, "Oh, this is great." And every time we hit this, I do a very radio trick in it, like a very sort of 90s American radio, where I go to this major chord I've been holding off for a long time. And every time we did, I just died inside of it. And then we had this other song that I wrote on the way to the studio, which was nonsense. It was like to the tune of Popeye the Sailor Man. It was called CIA Killed Rock and Roll. And everyone was like, "Oh, this is good." I'm thinking, no, it's not. So I actually really thought, about day 4 of the session, it was a 5-day session, I was thinking, well, this is over. So I was going for some very long walks through the hills. I will get on to Zombie Love, by the way. And I'm going through some very long walks through the hills thinking, great, okay, well, probably the most important thing I've done in my adult life is over. Wow, this is going to be really weird. I hope John's still going to invite me on to do Jealous Nostril stuff, and we'll see what we can do, right?
Kind of a heavy feeling to walk around with.
Yeah, sure, but also quite not as well. I mean, it was a big deal. Yeah.
Well, it's good that you were like kind of acknowledging it and then thinking about it. You're not running away.
Yeah. Anyway, so and then the last, it was like a movie. I came back the second last day of the session out in Spain. I got back to the studio after one of these walks. I walked in. There's no one in the studio. Why? Where's everyone gone? I don't know. I'm sitting there thinking, well, okay. And I get a bit petulant when that happens. I just really pointedly, if there's no one in the studio, I just pick up an instrument and start playing. Like, yeah, well, why is no one here? You know?
Keith Richards.
So, yeah, exactly. Thanks. Appreciate that. I don't get many Keith Richard comparisons, especially on national radio, and I deserve more. And then I start hitting this thing, and I start writing this song. I'm scared of nothing, right? So that was the song that crystallized the album, right? And so that was how we end up. Just all of a sudden, it all made sense, and we had a Razorlight song that we believed in. And
because I think we were having dinner or something. I mean, that's the only explanation I could think of, me not being in the studio if there's stuff going on or other people aren't doing stuff. But I remember coming down, I heard that riff.
Yeah, let's save that. Let's save that for the Scared of Nothing story. We're going to jump back
because
in.
that is on the way.
We're going to jump back into that. So what I'm trying to tell you is that I really didn't know that it was going to happen. It did happen. It clicked, and then suddenly Razorlight felt like a thing, and it felt like I'm making music because I care about making music, and I want to make music because that's the only reason I can do it. And
yeah, I was like in bliss for about an hour or two while this was going on. It was like
so Zombie. Yeah, Zombie was the first song that I wrote with Andy when we started writing together again for a long time, and it was actually a couple of years ago. We didn't finish it, but it was the first thing that came out was that chorus, and we went up to a little shed near his, he lives next to this farm, and we went in there and we just started jamming, and we were like, we didn't know, but if anything would come out, and that came out straight away, and Zombie was one of the. It was an amazing thing because obviously Andy and I have co-written a number of songs. Actually, not that many songs. Like the songs that we have co-written tend to be the like certainly from album 2 onwards tend to be the big singles because he's got that pop instinct. So when we do write together, it tends to pop out quite well. And so that was the first one I wrote with Andy, and then yes, out in Spain. It finally all sort of came together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but this had happened, this particular song, its initial gestation was before Spain.
Absolutely. And we tried to record it maybe 3 or 4 times. Right. And that's an interesting thing is that when one thing clicks as a band, and in our case, the first thing to click was Scared of Nothing, it suddenly unlocks everything else. Because I don't know, this is a sort of magical thing, but suddenly you all know what you're going for. You've got context, and certainly the previous times we've tried to record it, it was just kind of dead, So, but yeah, it was a great one to record. I mean, right up to the last minute, I was still writing it. We went to Spain. We did all the recording in Spain. Then the idea was to go back to London and carry on with the overdubs. And I was pretty sure I had Youth, the producer, lined up to come and help with that, and Andy was going to carry on and that kind of stuff. And they both just kind of vanished. So, they're both very artistic people, so they do that kind of thing. And so I was kind of like, finishing an album on my own. And I always say that, I'm the guy that's still there when everyone else has left. You know what I mean? And that's kind of like that sort of desire to just finish it right, not to leave any bit where you go, oh, sod it, that's not quite right, So Zombie, right up to the last, I'd say a week before we delivered it, I actually rewrote the verses and stuff. So, it was like, it was fun and games. But I was really pleased with how it came out. I was kind of, for me, it was a kind of, I was thinking something between like, Midnight Vultures, Beck, and like Outcast, and like somehow a bit of the Pixies or something, and it was kind of like, not that I can control anything because it's what the lads bring to the songs that make them sound like what they sound like, and it sort of came out pretty decent.
Yeah, I think it sounds great. I mean, it's interesting because it has one of the colours that I think is a dominant colour on this record, and the keyboards are quite a vital part of quite a lot of the sound of the record, which is quite interesting. And so it has this kind of nice keyboard melody in there, and that continues, not the same melody, but you can also hear, is it keyboards on You Can Call Me, or is that a guitar through a special pedal or something?
Because we'd been back for a while, and then I heard kind of on the grapevine that Johnny was in kind of like fixing a few bits. It was a bit kind of like vague what he was doing, but he was definitely in. And I thought like, well, I got a few bits, if there's, because I feel like I want to leave no stone unturned as well.
Yeah, Björn's on my team.
So I like phoned up and it's like, if you've got some, maybe you want to go for a walk, think about lyrics, I can do some guitar, something like that.
Björn's definitely on the obsessive finisher team. You know what I mean? So Björn was coming for those last few weeks as well. I mean, I remember it was amazing that the work you were bringing in, and it was.
Oh, thank
you. And there's a kind of like...
There's a lot of fun. That's the main thing I remember about
There's a kind of like... when you get to that point of a record, there's a kind of righteous indignation as well, where you're sort of like, well, I'm still here. Yeah. Where are the rest of you? You know what I mean? Like, okay, well, someone's got to do it,
And it's nice with fewer opinions, though, I find. You can move faster.
Yeah.
Some might even say that I keep going until everyone leaves for that very purpose.
Well, I think a little bit that you do need to be like the last person in the room just to make sure that you're like,
sure,
exactly right. And that is the most, the easiest way to do that is you and the person who's, engineer mix, wonderful guy called George Murphy, who's kind of...
Yeah, absolutely.
So where were these
into the tape machine?
That's in Eastcote in West London.
Right. Okay. So you'd spent your time in Spain. You'd got
we got the vibe. Yeah.
2 trips to Spain, I think.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then, but you were still finishing off some extra stuff.
Exactly.
At Eastcote Studios.
Well, we got the backing tracks. We got the drums and the bass pretty much in Spain, and then getting all the overdubs right. And we got some of the synths, and we got some various stuff. But getting all the overdubs right was basically London. So I'd say it was tracked in Spain and overdubbed in London.
Yeah, and so those keyboard parts that I'm talking about, they were done in London.
Well, it's a shame we didn't start the album with Scared of Nothing, because it would make explaining it a lot easier. But this was really the moment of like understanding where this album was going, because we started playing Scared of Nothing. We'll come back to that later, but I think Youth just got onto the Yamaha MS-10, right, which is the old synthesizer, or MS-20 maybe. And he just started...
I think, few nerds.
Yeah, and he just started playing it, and I was like, yeah, awesome. And it was kind of like all those kind of like... it was kind of like all those like little things that I've never done on a record, because I've always just said, well, that's not the world I'm going in. I'm not going to use a synth or whatever. But it was like the stuff that I loved from like, pulp records and stuff like, I'm thinking like those 90s, even before Different Class, Intro, His and Hers, that kind of stuff. I was like, and, the sort of Beck stuff and stuff I could find. It was like, yeah, finally the floodgates opened, and I allowed myself to put some of that in there. And it's very much like that for me when I'm making records. I always put, well, no, I don't put them there, but they create themselves these boundaries. Like, this is the palette that we're going with for this record, And so the MS-20, so the synth sort of became a thing. And then, and you can hear that throughout the whole album,
Yeah.
I'm kind of resident synth nerd. When I walked in and he had all these amazing things set up, I've managed to get a tiny bit of Juno on every record. And now finally it could bloom.
Yeah, that's true.
Brilliant.
It's a nice touch because it adds another ingredient to the whole sound.
You've got to move on. There's got to be something new and exciting that you haven't really done before.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and you've always got to be scared. I think when you finish music, a record, if you're not a little bit scared
of something, being scared of nothing can be a bit tricky.
Yeah. But you've got to be, I think you need to be like, I'm taking a risk here, I'm taking a gamble. And I think actually it's interesting in the history of Razorlight. I think a lot of people don't understand now, or maybe didn't understand at the time. Like our second album with America and Fall to Pieces and stuff like that on it was taking a risk at the time. But it got so successful, it became sort of the status quo that people don't really see that. But I remember sitting there, you know, with the label, with the A&R and stuff like that, when we'd done that record, which was, you know, that record was me and Andy falling in love musically, and really that was it, just following that thing. And I thought it was really, it's going to be really interesting to do something that has a certain sort of bubblegum aspect to it, you know, which is how I think of that.
In an Elvis Costello kind of way.
Well, I don't know. No, in a Johnny Borrell kind of way. But, you know, I like, you know, I just thought, yeah, let's go with that. And I remember like the label and stuff saying, you know, you're taking a risk, because what everyone does, what every indie band does, I mean, I hate being called an indie band, but I'm starting to do it these days. What every rock and roll band does in England after they've had a successful album is they come back for the second one wearing a leather jacket, and they do the first one again, but a little bit darker. And that's been going on since the Pretenders, you know. I mean, this has been going on forever. That is the playbook, right? And obviously we were very much not doing that. You know, I remember Richard saying to me, you know, you're turning right instead of turning left, and you know, it's a risk. You know, this might
young thing to do at that point.
You know, this might,
because if that hadn't sold as well as, you know, we would have looked like, you know, we were desperate or something.
No, it would have been even better. It would have been a cult classic.
Oh yeah,
no, it would have been. You know what I mean? Like,
audience.
Right. So that's my opinion anyway. So I think actually it kind of hung us out there a little bit too long. It was too successful, and anyway, that's we could have that discussion. Was Razorlight, the second Razorlight album, was that a good thing or a bad thing in the history of Razorlight? You know, that would be the discussion we could really have. Anyway.
But we're talking about the now.
Really proud of
yeah, we're talking about the now. We're talking about the future as well. We're talking about the new album,
The Continuum.
You Can Call Me is the next song. We mentioned the kind of keyboard link. I just wanted to quickly clarify what Zombie Love might be about. Is it a song of rejection in a way? No, I think that.
No, it's like it's. I was singing about that weird thing that people do, where now seeming like in the world of social media and that kind of stuff, where. People seem to have, you know, this sort of endless voyeuristic access to people, and I was sort of encountering this thing of seeing my friends and stuff like that. I mean, I'm going to reiterate to people that don't know, I'm not on socials. I don't have a smartphone. I try and limit my internet to about 5 minutes a week. You know, I don't care about computers, and but people start doing that thing where like they'd like. Be like sort of like reaching out to someone they were into or something like that, but they're never meeting up, and it would go on for years, like years. And that was the idea of the zombie love. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, oh yeah, oh I know such and such. She's my zombie love. He's my zombie love. You know, and I was like, it's really weird, you know. And so yes, and zombie love's kind of about that. It's about this kind of like. I mean, yeah, you know, or what I just said.
Yeah.
So this is the amazing thing about lyrics. So I thought it was about, because in my past life, I've got this girl called Jessica, and we were, you know, we started to date, and then I kind of screwed it up, and I held the candle for her for just ages, and then we kind of go off again, and then I realized I'd been holding the candle for a fictitious person.
Same thing.
I thought
it's
that
kind of the same thing.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
That's a zombie love. It just keeps going on, but it should be dead. It shouldn't be there.
Yeah, but your fictitious love was in your memory, in your poetic memory, rather than on your Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm not making a judgment, but I'm just pointing out a difference.
Yeah. But it's a good illustration of how songs can mean different things to different people, and we all find different meaning in them.
I mean, you can call me, on the other hand, has a fairly direct meaning, right? So like...
Hard to misinterpret that one.
Not be too clear about that one, yeah.
Well, you make one thing plain. Your stance on a particular drug that...
Yeah. I have always hated cocaine. I mean, I really despise it as a drug, you know, and as someone that, you know, I mean, I was in, you know, rehabbing off heroin and stuff before I was 20. I've got quite an experience of substances, and I don't know.
It's the interesting thing about your story and about the story of Razorlight is that when you hit the big time, one of the things that was kind of revealed was that you didn't do drugs or drink, Johnny. And it turned out that you'd kind of done all that stuff. Well, I mean, that's 5 years before.
That's almost true. We were drinking a lot, right? I've I just went back. Someone showed me a New York Times interview we did in about 2004, 2005, and it was like, we've gone out to New York. They've sent the New York Times to come and interview us. So when we were going to meet the journalist, me and Andy, what did we do to sort of like, get ready for it? Well, 6 pints each, right? And then go to the next bar where we're waiting for her, and we're thinking, we can't look like, we can't wait for her with an empty table, so let's get onto the beers. We're on like 7 or 8 pints when the journalist turns up. I mean, that's just great, right? There's no control, there's no thought, there's no image management there. There's nothing like that. It's just like, yeah. So we were drinking a lot, but my point, I mean, when Razorlight started getting successful, I kind of joined the boxing club and I was doing other stuff, because I kind of done that before. But yeah, cocaine, oh my God.
One of the things
it's interesting because
I'm going to say, like, okay, there's so many people that you meet in your 20s who you think are really cool artists, and then as you move into your 30s, you think, no, you're just a coke addict, and that difference only becomes apparent as you get past about 29.
What else is You Can Call Me About, or is is it your way of saying that?
Well, as ever, I was singing to somebody, and as ever, I never like to talk about who that person is. I was kind of waiting for that person to turn up, but they weren't,
Yeah.
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 But it was, it was a fun one. It was definitely a fun one.
Yeah. Taylor Swift equals US soft propaganda. It's the third track on the new album, Planet Nowhere.
They can't call it that. Surely someone must have had a word. They can't do that.
Well, my first thoughts when I heard it, and I think I shared those thoughts with you via email, Johnny, was, is there any need to call it that?
Well, I will tell you the story of how it came about. And I'll tell you my take on that as a title as well, right? My take on that as a title is, every empire in the history of the world has required propaganda to continue existing. Now, why should the current United States be any different? That's my first question.
Soft power to it.
That's my first question, right? My second thing would be my observation about Taylor Swift, and I'm not a fan, right? Is with the exception of Björn, who's sitting next to me, everybody I've ever met, say over the age of 20, who says that that they like Taylor Swift, I then say to them, would you ever choose to put it on? And they say no. And then they say to me, I say, what's your favourite song? And they say, well, you don't understand. It's kind of about like, it's about her kind of like, it's about her like persona, and it's about her kind of marketing. She's a genius with marketing. She's a genius with persona. And I'm like, okay. Cool.
But are those just the people you're meeting? No, because there are millions of Taylor Swift fans in the world, and there's a lot to be admired about.
I've got one next to me because Björn genuinely, there are Taylor Swift songs when they come on, he really likes them.
Yeah, right? But they are.
I think
songs.
"Shake It Out" is genius.
Yeah.
Now I'm just my other point that I would make is that I think if you are the biggest artist in the world, the bar should be a bit higher. Yeah, but anyone can like whatever they like. So I like to think that. Also, the other thing is like I haven't seen a lot of like criticism of Taylor Swift out there, right? I like what Joni Mitchell said, right? The only thing that she's got in common with Taylor Swift is cheekbones, right? So if I'm in company with Joni Mitchell on this one, I'm staying there, and. We're in the studio. Björn goes in to do an overdub of some other track, and he just goes in and starts playing this riff. And I'm like, what's that? Push record. Björn, just play it, right? Push record. I've got a mic. I grab it, and he records it in one take. I sing it in one take, and
then I did a one take tambourine. I think.
Yeah,
there's a lot of just like.
Right, and we're like, and Björn's like, is that a song? I'm like, well, I don't know, I guess it is, right? And can I put a tambourine on it? Yeah, put a tambourine on it. Come in, he's like, is that a song? I'm like, yeah. He's like, what's it called? I look down. I always keep a piece of paper with me in the studio where I write down things that people are saying. And one of the things I'd heard somebody say in the studio was, I don't get Taylor Swift. It's just like US soft propaganda, like dating the quarterback, all that kind of stuff. I just don't get it. And I looked at that and I said, yeah, it's a song. It's called Taylor Swift equals US soft propaganda. I just read it off the page. And that's the kind of thing that then after you do that as a musician, I like the reality of what happens in the process. And I think it's important to give that to your fans, and I think that's the kind of thing where then people will start coming in to try and clean it up and they go, well, you shouldn't say that because it's going to offend some people. Well, I mean, the only way you avoid offending people is if you're nice and dead, and I don't really care.
We're not saying
I don't really care about being either, right?
Assassinate Taylor Swift. We're not.
No,
it's more like we're not really talking about her per se. It's more about like phenomena and how people and.
So in effect.
But anyway, my point is that was part of the creative process.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what you're saying.
So there you go. That is what on the piece of paper. That's what people were saying, and I hate that thing of like saying one thing when the mics are off and then saying another thing when the mics are on. I despise it. I used to go on those politics programs and stuff like that in the UK. I'd have these amazing conversations with the politicians and stuff like that. They'd tell me about what's going on. As soon as the mics roll, they're talking about something. They're talking like, it's like they're talking to babies, and they're not saying what they were saying when the mics were off. I'm like, and then the mics go off and I'm like, guys, what happened to the conversation we were having before? And they're like, well, the mics are on. I'm like, what? So you think that people are too stupid to be able to deal with actually talking about the way we actually talk about it? And that's like when I come in here with you, I talk to you like I would talk to you if the mics were off, right? And I think that's very important. I think that's really important in the creative process as well. And so, that was kind of my own way of, my own slight petulant, righteous indignation is to say that and just say, look, everyone, I guarantee you the next 10 bands you play on Radio X, like, obviously we're playing Razorlight right now, but like, the next 10 bands that get played on Radio X, if you ask them in a room, what do you think of Taylor Swift? They'd be like, it's rubbish. And if you ask them with the mic on, they'd be like, oh my God, she's amazing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I see what you're getting at. And I completely understand that creative arc whereby, you're overhearing conversation, you're overhearing different comments and you write them down and, you juxtapose the two things because they happened at the same time and you kind of put them together. My only question with this song is that you end up having to take a stance or justify the song title when we've got the song to talk about as well and what's going on in the song.
I'm going to give it an alternative title just for Radio X, right? It's good. The other title for it is We Know When the Poison's Right. So introduce it. You can introduce it as that. It's a special John Kennedy title. Anyway, so it was amazing to record. We recorded it in seconds. Björn actually went in and played the drums on it as well. So it's Björn's drum debut.
Wow.
I think.
Yeah, so if you guys think, what the hell happened to Andy all of a sudden? It's me.
That's amazing. But the interesting thing is, I mean, I love this comment that I read from Youth, which was a description of Razorlight before you started working together. And it does seem to tally with the 3 songs we've heard so far. So apparently Youth said, I know what Razorlight is. It's a driving bass line, driving drums, and a story. And one of the great things about Planet Nowhere is that it has all those elements. They're really kind of key elements, and they are the key elements of Razorlight in many ways.
There's a lot of groove on this album.
There is. It's got a great groove. And it's interesting that actually Björn is playing the drums on this, not Andy, but the groove is there, and it's really consistent.
The tambourine is much more important to that kind of thing. Like, listen to Motown.
Right, yeah.
Well, yeah, but that's why we made this album, right? And that's why we didn't make an album for a very long time. Because the one thing I've always tried to avoid doing, I prefer to focus on what I like doing rather than what is starting to get a bit ranty and negative. But the thing I've never wanted to do with Razorlight is do the Maroon 5 thing, which is, for me, is like where you start off as a band and then you morph into a pop thing, or you call it the Coldplay thing, whatever, right? So you start making, your music gets more and more like dance music, gets more and more produced, gets more and more slick, gets more and more LA, gets more and more whatever it is. And until it's not, to me, it's the opposite of like David Bowie or Joni Mitchell or something like that, or Neil Young or whatever, where your music changes over time but gets more interesting. Because a lot of bands do this sort of careerist thing where it's like it just gets more and more bland and more pop, right? A band like Queen didn't do that. They changed, but like, Another One Bites the Dust is just as exciting as Bohemian Rhapsody in a way, right? So I never wanted to do that. So the only time I will ever make a Razorlight album is when the juice is like flowing and it's there, And so I've had so many people. I spent the last decade going out playing like world music jazz, basically with Zazu, and playing heavy metal with Jealous Nostril. And people come up to me going, why are you coming out and playing these tiny clubs? You know, what are you doing? You know, you've got a massive band there. Go out and do some huge tours. You know, what are you doing? You know? And I'm like, yeah, I can only do it if it's what's happening for me at that point in my life. You know, if that's what's exciting. Because when I stand on stage, I can only do it if I really believe in the thing, and then I can deliver to the fans. And I don't want to be the guy up on stage who's just like nickel and diming it. You know what I mean? Just phoning it in. You know, that's not what I'm here for. Because I don't want to give that to people, but also I couldn't stand doing it. I'd go home and I'd probably vomit for like 3 hours. You know, it's like,
yeah, me neither. I would like, it's got to come from in here. You can't like superimpose something like, well, you can, but it's.
But I think because I think
people will, it won't pass the smell test.
I think we tasted it a bit with Razorlight, like coming into the third album, where it was like, this is a good therapy session today, right? We're coming into the third album where it was
into Slipway Fires.
Where it was a little bit like that, because, well, you know, there's all these, you want to please your fans, you want to get out there, but that was a point in time where I didn't have a record in me, you know, but I tried to make one.
Yeah, I think we're all kind of like running low on mental reserve. Yeah. We've been working solidly for like a long time.
Which is not to diss the album, because, you know, there's some really good stuff on there, but I didn't have an album in me, you know. So
at least not as good as we think it should be to be, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, so what song are we on?
We're about to play Dirty Luck. And after the 3 tracks so far, which keep it upbeat, you kind of slow things down a bit.
The new Who Needs Love in my book, the kind of soulier Razorlight, which I always loved.
Yeah.
You sell it.
Well, I mean, you don't. It's an interesting track because, in a way, it name checks the title of the album. It also kind of builds and kind of goes a bit crazy with these great drum rolls near the end of the track. There's these great backing vocals.
The late Roman Empire of drum fills. I like to think of that first one. Right, pure. I mean, it's almost vulgar, right?
Just before the split.
Yeah, just before the split, right? Listen, interesting track actually. Really interesting track for me.
It's an interesting story too. What's going on in this?
So I actually I'm sort of toying in my mind with how far I go with this. I wrote this one in a dream, right?
In a dream.
Another one. It started to happen in recent years, right? Where I'm dreaming the song, and it might even, I don't know. I'm driving up this mountain road, and I can hear this song on the radio. And the song in the dream, the song was by Jack Pagnate, right? I'm like, what's Jack doing in my dreams? Right, fair. I haven't seen him for like 15 years, right? There he is, looking all handsome, sort of slightly Patrick Swayze-like, and he's wearing this ripped T-shirt. And I'm hearing this song, and I'm like, how the hell has Jack, no offense, but how has Jack written this song? This is amazing. And I'm listening to it. I'm like, wow. And then I managed to wake up. I'm like, oh yeah. Okay, in that whole first verse, and I went to a quiet bit of the flat, and I was sitting there, it was about 4 a.m. It was dark outside, London winter, and I wrote the whole thing. And, you get given a starting point, and then I worked out who I was singing to, which was not actually a romantic thing. It was actually a kind of creative thing. And just that feeling of loss and losing someone and how much it sucks, right? And I managed to just close out the song, like at that 4:30 in the morning, with the guitar. And I didn't want to play it to anyone because ballads are tricky. You don't want to jinx them, and you never want to say to someone, I've written a good song, and then bring it in. So I kept quiet about it. I went in with Andy, and I kind of knew Andy was going to love it, because it's in that tradition of track 4 is the right spot on it. Andy Burroughs, Johnny Borrell, Björn Ågren, Carl Darlamo, Razorlight album. Track 4 is the right spot for a ballad, and I haven't wanted to write a ballad with Razorlight for a very long time because I I love America, but at the same time it's somehow traumatic as well. I don't know. I have a sort of love-hate relationship with it. I wouldn't say hate, but like. So it's like I wasn't sure if I ever wanted to do another slow song with Razorlight, but this one just kind of came out, and Yeah, you know, me and Andy kept it fairly quiet when we'd worked on it, and then I was like, I think the first time Björn and Carl should hear it is in the studio.
That's right, you sprung it on them.
Yeah, I sprung it, yeah. And
I mean, it's not that slow, really.
Oh,
no.
I enjoy a challenge, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, I really felt like, you know, what I like, sometimes I'm quite sly with that kind of stuff of like when you reveal the songs to people, because you want to, sometimes you just, you know, on a song like that, you want to catch them while they're playing, while they're just messing about. You don't want them to rehearse it too much. And I've, you know, like America was a recording of a demo. It was when we were all still playing around with it. And we tried to re-record that with, you know, some of the best producers that have ever lived. And we couldn't do better than the demo. And so it's kind of like...
I don't even have a guitar part on it.
No, that's true as well.
Carl does.
I remember getting sorry, this is real therapy. I remember getting a bad review for Wire to Wire, and they were slagging me off personally for making a song where you didn't even get to play guitar. And I was thinking...
the entire atmosphere kind of around the song was
you are playing guitar on that one, but you don't play guitar on the big hit that they didn't slag me off about. So there you go. Anyway, people thought that there was a trumpet in Zazu, so what can you say? Yeah.
Planet Nowhere.
Planet Nowhere. So
that's
meanwhile,
mentioned
back
in this
on
song.
Planet Nowhere, yeah. And I mean...
So the character in the song, is that you? Is it the person in the dream?
Yeah, I mean, it's always me, you know, in some way, or a part of me or whatever. And, you know, with songwriting for me, as soon as I have a first line and I know who I'm talking to, I just write the song. It's just as natural as talking. But getting to that first line and working out who I'm talking to can take years. I mean, like, you know, so it's certainly not easy songwriting, but once I get to that point where I know who I'm talking to, and that person that I'm talking to can be real, can be fictive, they can be a combination of other people, it can be a part of myself. The person who's talking can be me. It can be fictitious. What do we say in English?
Fictitious.
Fictitious, thank you so much. Fictif in French. See, my brain's gone all weird.
Do you ever do the flip character thing? Where suddenly, all of a sudden in one verse, it's the other character talking to verse one character.
I think if you can do that, like, in a really genius way that actually changes the context, like something like Sitting on the Dock of the Bay or something like that, I would do it. But I'm not that clever, and it's already been done, and no, I wouldn't. I mean, it just seems too easy. But yeah, I don't know. So that was Planet Nowhere.
So that's where the title comes from, and it relates to the person in Dirty Luck.
Yeah, absolutely. But I felt like it was the right title, because I felt like, you know, I think there's something implicit in Planet Nowhere that reminds that, you know, I think it's like there's something kind of like, there's a sort of like suburban youthful loneliness that I think all good rock and roll comes out of. And I mean, look, I'm in my 40s, so, you know, but I still think that's what's driving me. And, you know, the cover of the album, right? You know, there's a young person sort of gazing out, like sort of doing a David Bowie impression, you know what I mean, in this sort of suburban context. And I feel like that kind of like, that sort of loneliness and sort of alienation is so important to rock and roll. And I felt like, yeah, Planet Nowhere, I felt like this is music from Planet Nowhere. It's from a place that isn't tapped into the mainstream, that isn't tapped into, you know, like I was saying, the internet and all that kind of stuff, right? And you know, and of course there's a kind of joke in there as well, because it's like, you know, Razorlight was an absolutely huge band, and we're still doing all right, you know what I mean? But it was like, it's a kind of like, we're coming from Planet Nowhere. We're just like Palookaville, you know? And I thought that kind of really fit it really well, you know? And I thought like, then I thought Planet Nowhere is kind of like, there's an aspect where, you know, Planet Nowhere is a place where it doesn't matter what you do. You're sort of alienated from society and you can't change anything. And I think there's a kind of cynicism that I've kind of developed over recent years, where, you know, I feel really really annoyed about many things, you know, in the planet and the way the politics has gone. If you'd have asked me 20 years ago when I first came here, if I thought the world would be as far right wing as it politically as it is right now, I'd have just said there's no chance. Right? We probably both said the same thing. And you know, I'm not talking about like I'm not talking about fiscal conservatism. I'm talking about fascism, you know, and you know, and just the extent to which we're living in such an alienating world, such a rip-off world, you know, where apparently it's normal, for example, for bands to sell tickets with yield pricing, like they do on the trains and the aeroplanes. So the person who buys your ticket last pays more than the person who buys it first. I mean, get real. What is that? That's not right. It's like, what are you going to do if you don't sell out your venue? You're going to like put in a worse PA or something, which I've seen people do. Why are you doing that for? Your fan is your fan, right? Why is one of them paying more than the other one? I don't get it.
It's almost like they've seen the touts and basically they're making money.
Oh, let's be touts ourselves. But then, you know, then people say to me,
rip the people off.
Then people say to me, oh, but Robert Smith didn't do that. And I'm like, yeah, that's amazing. Robert Smith didn't do that. And then I stop myself and I say, that's not amazing. That's normal.
Yeah.
Why is the bar so low that we're saying to bands, oh, if you just charge all your audience members the same price, you're doing something heroic? Sorry, the bar is low. And I think about in my own sort of journey, like, you know, all this, you know, talking about all this stuff, climate change, all that kind of stuff, where like I took a lot of flack in the noise. I was constantly campaigning, you know, working with politicians in Westminster and stuff like that. And we got through the climate change bill, stuff like that. It just gets torn up. So it's like, well, I actually put my energy into it, you know, and to what avail? Because I think, I don't know, you know. Yeah. So I think that feeling of that probably comes into Planet Nowhere as well. And this feeling that, the planet does feel a little bit stuck right now, you know. Yeah. And possibly my own feeling of resignation, you know.
My theory is that the boomers all have to leave, and then we'll get some big change. I don't know what's going to be.
We'd just like to point out at this point in time that any opinion expressed is Björn's own opinion, does not necessarily reflect the policies of Razorlight as a whole.
When they do.
It's really interesting. I didn't know we'd end up down these roads, as it were.
But there is a paradigm shift coming up. I can feel a paradigm shift coming up, but what exactly it is,
I can see what you're saying. Right.
What time does this go out? At 3 a.m.?
You told us the story about how really, this was the catalyst that made you realise we have got the groove, we have got the magic still in us. We can work together, and there will be a new Razorlight record, and the group will continue to make new music. So that was clearly an exciting point to get on that first trip to Spain when you were recording with Youth there.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, and it was just completely unexpected. You know, like I said, we were out there, and I'm thinking, yeah, I mean, Youth's a good producer, we're all good players, and we've been out here 4 days and we've done nothing that moves me, you know. So I think by my own, gambit, it's like, this is over. It's time to move on. And I sat there in the studio on my own, and this song kind of came out. As it was coming out and I was writing it, I wasn't thinking this is a Razorlight song. I didn't even think, is it good or bad or whatever. It just kind of like, it made me laugh, right? Because we're all scared of something. And I love this sort of preposterousness of saying, I'm scared of nothing, you know. But at the same time, there was the voice of something else coming through, some kind of like wisdom that was saying, actually, at the end of the day, maybe we can all get past the fears, you know, and maybe that is a place that we can get to. Anyway, I thought to myself, yeah, whatever, right? Maybe this will be a Jealous Nostril song. I don't really know. And then it was like a movie, because the next night we were sitting at dinner, and you said to me, do you want to go down and do like one more track while you're here, one more bash, you know? And I was like, and I said, well, firstly, I didn't know everyone was leaving the next day, because I thought we were staying for longer, because that's what I'm like. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. I said, well, I'll go and ask Andy, see if he's up for it. And I went down to Andy's room and knocked on his door. I said, Andy, Youth fancies going for another one. Are you up for playing? And he said, he gave me a Hampshire yes, which is no, right? And he kind of said yes, but in a way that is the last thing I want to do in the world right now is play drums. And I was like, well, look, we'll be in the room and pop in if you want. And he did. He came in, and I started playing this song, fairly, simple song. And we all started playing along, and it was absolutely terrible. I mean, it was just I was just like sitting there, and I'm thinking, this is so bad. Like, for some reason, Andy has never slowed down on a song in his life, but he was slowing down every take. And it was like, this is awful. And you were running around plugging things in, plugging things out. You know what I mean? Like, this is a normal thing. Carl's like sort of playing along, was like staring at the floor. It was real ice, And as a songwriter, it's the last sort of environment you want to bring a new song into, because it's sort of like bringing your kid to school, you know what I mean? And I think I definitely got enthusiasm off Björn, but I was kind of like, oh, I don't know. And we played it. And then I was thinking to myself, well, okay, this song isn't for Razorlight. I'll try it with Jealous, and we'll see what happens. And we sort of finished the take. And if I was producing, I'd have just gone, right, let's do something else. And, it's not happening. And yeah, you did a fantastic thing. He just said, oh yeah, it's almost there. Just go for another one. And we did. And it just started getting better, slightly better and better, until take 4, take 5. We just did it, and we nailed it. And it sounded like the track. And all of a sudden it was like, yeah, that was something that I couldn't have imagined happening. So something that's bigger than me has happened. And I love listening to this. And I can't wait to play it to people.
Yeah.
And I can't wait to play it to people that, I've got my little circle of people that I play music to, and they're generally people who aren't from the UK, and generally people who don't like my music very much. So it's quite a baptism of fire every time I play the music. And all of them came back to me and said, I really like this. Can I have this? And so I was like, yeah, I enjoy listening to this. I like this. And so suddenly that sort of mythical thing that I'd been searching for in Razorlight for a long time, just suddenly, boom, there it was. And I still had no idea. We did take 5. We'd done some edits. We'd done some stuff. We'd been working on it for about 3 hours. I still had no idea if Andy liked the song. I mean, like, zero. And we were standing outside there, and then he just sort of he just didn't even turn around to me. He just kind of just said, that's a really good chorus. And I was like, what a nice moment. Because I respect Andy a lot as a songwriter, and it was like very, that moment, to sort of have that. And I was like, well, game on. Right, let's make a Razorlight record. Yeah.
Wow. It's amazing. It's amazing that persistence of youth that helped push you further to get on with it. And maybe he just kind of saw that maybe there's a little sparkle here that can just kind of...
Which is why we chose to work with youth, because, I mean, and you sort of alluded to it before, but that when I went to meet him before the record in his house in London, he said that thing to me. I said, I probably spent about 10 minutes explaining all the problems and the way all our various neuroses run up against each other, myself included, and he just looked at me and just said, well, I'm surprised you having all these problems. Razorlight's pretty simple, isn't it? It's driving bass, driving drums, and a story. And I was like, you're the guy. You're the guy, because, that is just the perfect stoner dad energy that we needed. And love you. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. So, and that, what a moment, and people, I'd love to be that person in 20 years' time who could do that, who could help bands through that moment, because you've got that experience being a bass player, Killing Joke, he's got that experience of bands, and obviously he's made so many records. So grateful for that.
Yeah. Yeah, fantastic. And we are too, because here it is, the new record from Razorlight, Planet Nowhere, continues with FOBF. What does that stand for?
I'm not allowed to say on radio,
Is it rude?
It's rude, yeah.
Right.
It's do or be done.
Fulfillment of funny business.
And this is an interesting one musically, because it goes off in a different direction. This is a new sound, I think, for Razorlight.
Yeah, I suppose this is the one that went the furthest that way, furthest to sort of like, sort of Beck, Midnight Vultures kind of world, maybe even a bit of Frank Zappa, Overnight Sensation, I'd say. And that was one that I just kind of had in my back pocket. And once we'd nailed Scared Nothing, and I started to get the feeling of this album, I thought, well, yeah, let's try it. And it's really fun. It's great fun to play live, I don't know what to say about it. We took a little while recording it. I got Andy to recut the drums on it. He'd hit them kind of harder, and then we brought them back a bit, and yeah, it was just me getting down with the MS-20, just let loose, you know.
And getting that guitar sound right as well, because it's like I just do the weird kind of weird squiggles on this. This is like. So
it has a kind of John Frusciante type thing going on, maybe.
Yeah, sure, exactly. Definitely, yeah. I mean,
we're in this cool thing now where he's starting to do more kind of intricate guitar stuff. So then I have to find like another space to kind of get in there.
Yeah, I've destroyed my quota because we had a deal on previous albums that I get one guitar solo per album. And I mean, I've always been a terrible lead guitarist, and but I've crushed that now. I think I've got lots of solos on this album.
He's in this very tricky spot now where he's so good he can actually play terribly. So now you have to begin to stop yourself from playing like too good. It's a really weird place in the guitar playing journey.
I'm like that adolescent with braces kind of phase of guitar playing, and if it carries on, I won't be able to do it. I'll actually start to sound like I can play, which would ruin everything.
Below the 7th fret, though, he's just,
well, anyway,
you know.
But no, anyway, but it's so that was it. I was trying to do a bit of a Jimmy Page thing. Yeah, bit of Jimmy Page, bit of Frusciante. Am I in the guitar club now? Can I talk like that? Is that right? You know,
I say you are.
Why not?
Answers on a postcard.
And Empire Service is an interesting one because it's a kind of different kind of sound again, because it's a lot more rocky, and it's kind of
post-rocky even.
Yeah, definitely, and it's quite hard hitting, and the whole way that you deliver the vocals is different as well. It's like a conversation between two people shouting at each other.
Well, that's exactly right. My girlfriend's a novelist, right? And she's very talented. And we were just hanging out, and she'd written down some conversations that she heard on the Empire Service train, which is a train line in Brooklyn, I think. And she wrote down what these kids were saying. You know, it's the ocean. No, it's not the ocean. It is the ocean. No, it's not. And she started sort of reading it to me, and I just laughed. I just picked up the guitar. I was like, that's a song. So I just started playing it and singing it back, you know. So it's the first time I've done that kind of reportage kind of thing, you know. And then I tried to get into the mind of these kids and wrote the chorus. And that was the song, you know. I mean, again, it was written in about 30 seconds, you know what I mean? Because it was, well, I mean, you know, we just knew where it was. And then, yeah, so look, track 7, it's make or break for an album. I think it's so important, you know, because track 7, if your album's no good, you know it by track 7. Because it's starting to creak a bit, and you're like, oh, I can't listen to this all the way through.
Yeah, I start thinking about making a cup of tea. Yeah, something that's, you know, like
anything, anything but the rest of this album. And, you know, so yeah, really important track, I thought. And I mean, yeah, I don't know what post-rock is, but I'll take the compliment. And yeah, love those choruses. And I don't even know what Björn's playing in those choruses. It's just that wall of sound, that explosion. Yeah, I love it. And
it's just it's good. It's interesting hearing the story and hearing how the words came into the song, and because I immediately thought of that kind of scenario, not necessarily teenagers, but of people having an argument, one of those kind of dumb arguments where kind of people reveal their ignorance, and well, it could be you revealing your ignorance. I mean, you come out with something. Not, I don't mean you, Johnny, but me or anybody. You make a statement and say, "Oh no, why have I said that? That's a really stupid thing to say." And
and then you've got two types of people. You can either back down or just keep going. Double down and back down.
And I like the way that has evolved, and it's great to hear about that. And it's interesting because track 7, it's a pivotal track, but you've also kept us surprised because it's not like any of the songs that we've heard so far, and it's not like any of the songs that we're going to hear afterwards. So you've kept us interested. We're not going to boil the kettle and make a cup of tea. We're going to stay listening.
I think all the songs have got twins, right? They're pairs of songs on this album, if you think about it. And I think that Scared of Nothing and Empire Service kind of go together because there's similar heaviness
Right.
You know? And then like, I'll reveal it later on as we go.
Yeah. Well, the next song we're going to talk about is Cyclops. And this has a different kind of feel to it. So this is kind of almost jaunty in a way. And it has this lovely shimmering guitar near the end as well. What can you tell us about Cyclops?
I wanted to glide. It's this kind of like ethereal glide thing.
Definitely. I mean, this song actually has quite a nice spot in the story of Björn and I getting back to playing music together again, because this is probably the oldest song on the album. I wrote this like about 3-4 years ago, you know, and maybe even more, actually, now I think about it. And I was trying to record it when I was, you know, sort of like playing with other musicians, and I was trying to find the right feel for it and all that kind of stuff, and it just wasn't happening. And when I bumped into Björn and then you know, in Kentish Town, and then I just sort of said to him, look, I've got a song. Do you want to come up with a guitar line for it? You know, I mean, I know this may be somewhat political or whatever, and this maybe it seemed like a leading thing, but let's just stay pragmatic on this and just say, look, here, I've got a song. I really like your guitar work, so do you want to play guitar in it? Which Björn gave me that great answer of, Johnny, I like you and I like most of your songs, so send it over and I'll tell you what I think, which was my favourite answer ever. And so that and Björn, you know, that guitar line that you're alluding to, or you just mentioned, was you know, very much this. I was like, oh yeah, Björn. I mean, and no offence to anyone else I was playing with, but you know, for Björn to come in and play that line, I was like, oh, I've really missed that, you know. And
it was very spontaneous as well. I just got the song. Recording he'd done of it, which is quite finished. It was like, you know, it wasn't just a demo. And I think I just listened to it twice, picked up a guitar, and like within 5 minutes I had that. It just kind of came. And I was like, you know, I should probably keep on going because I might find, but no, what could be better than, like, you know,
yeah,
just,
well done.
Bam, there it was.
Yeah.
And
the bass line, was that already on there, or does that?
Well,
I don't know.
Yeah,
because basically, like we recorded it before Andy and Carl came back, so
right?
Pre-pandemic for a little bit there. It was kind of the two of us and Rennie, our keyboard player. So we recorded a version of it then.
Did you play bass on it?
Yes, I did the bass, and then Carl kept like a few little elements.
Yeah.
So the
so it's a Carl Björn thing, a Björn Carl.
Yeah, it's mainly Carl with a few little choice bits.
What about do? Is that Carl?
That's me.
That's you. Okay.
Do. That's
okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. All right. Now I can situate it. But yeah, Carl's such an important part to our sound. You know.
He is our Ringo. I remain firmly convinced of this.
Yeah.
He's the guy who kind of keeps it in roughly the same place, you know, where you know, because he's always kind of reaching for something. I'm always reaching for something else, and so it's nice to have a Ringo there who's kind of pulls it all into some sort of.
It doesn't sound like Razorlight unless Carl's playing.
Yeah. And we've tried it, everybody else, and just him missing. And there's like a last kind of 10-15%. And we've been racking our brains and we can't figure it out. It just has to be him.
Like every band, we all think we're the best bass player in the band.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, by miles.
Actually,
I know
Carl,
I am. Right?
Carl agrees
I know I am.
with that sentiment.
But that's the scary thing. But then he's better than all of us. So there you go.
And especially, like, he is just... There is no other bass player for Razorlight.
Yeah,
that's the thing. If you want the best player for Razorlight, you gotta be him.
Yeah. So you're saying in the song that you're not cool people.
Oh,
which is your kind of outsider thing. I mean, it's kind of ties in with the Planet Nowhere and the fact that Razorlight are outside of society in a way. You're in your own world.
God, I just...
But you would have been
Listen,
cool
let me
people
just...
at some point.
No, let me say something, right? If you do something and you stop to take a photo of yourself doing it or film yourself doing it, that thing is no longer cool, right? That's just what I always understood, right? That kind of, like, back in the 90s or the noughties, if you were the kind of person that would, like, show people pictures of yourself, there could be nothing lamer than that, right? And I think, this is real. It's a very complicated issue, right? Because I'm not saying things were better in my time or anything like that. I will say that pretty much everyone I speak to in young bands, they say, oh my God, doing the social media is the worst part of this. I hate doing it. I'm like, that kind of poses a question. But I understand why they feel they have to or whatever. But yeah, maybe that thing of like, you know, really like trying to like craft your image, you know, that kind of thing that I think we were talking about before, like me and Andy doing 8 pints before we meet in the New York Times for the first time, or maybe we were mentioning about, you know, Taylor Swift or whatever, or like politics TV shows where I'm just going to talk to you like I would talk if the mics weren't off. And yeah, that song, I was playing banjo 3 o'clock in the morning. I was playing for about an hour and a half. Again, I think that's part of the thing of like not having internet, social media, that kind of stuff. Like I can just go into those places where I just play and play. And this song just kind of came out and you know, there you go. It just kind of popped out and it was like, yeah. Oh, I love that chorus, you know? And I don't know. Yeah. I can't define cool or not cool, but like, I just think like that kind of, I feel uncomfortable about something with like that kind of self-promoting kind of instinct that seems to be everywhere. Even retrospectively, I find it quite funny. Like Rennie always shows me that what was it? That indie sleaze stuff.
Oh yeah,
and there's photos of people from the noughties, like taking photos. People who were taking selfies back then, but no one was taking selfies back then. If you were cool, you definitely weren't doing that. So it's just the only surviving pictures of people like partying from the noughties are the people that would like pose for a camera, which is like no one that was doing anything.
And I remember
fun.
there was quite a lot of like people walking around with Polaroid cameras, like doing snaps and stuff. And the vice do's and don'ts. I suppose there's this kind of the continuum here.
So as this goes out, the album will be out. You'll have done a run of dates. And the amount of new songs in the set would be interesting to know. And also you've got this other gig coming up, which is a celebration of the debut. And you know, these songs I want to hear live as soon as possible.
Well, let me tell you something about how that's going to go down, and I think it's important. You know, again, just sort of letting people into the reality and the inner workings of what goes on with Razorlight in a sort of unfiltered way. I'm really, really pleased to mark the 20th anniversary of Up All Night, and we're going to play at Brixton Academy. Now, as soon as that idea was there, you know, everyone sort of came to me and they're like, oh, let's go and do a tour because you can play some really big venues if you go and do an Up All Night tour. And I'm like, but we've just been reborn. Like we've just written a new album. Now, I don't know if it's going to sell tickets or sell units or whatever. I don't really care. The point is the band's alive when we're playing the new stuff. Now, I'm really happy to do Up All Night, and it's going to be a hell of an experience for me because that's it's a whole other story. We could do another show for that, right? But like, you know, that was a big deal, that album, in another world, in another time. So, you know, I just turn around and I'm like, no, we're going to go on tour now, and we're not going to take the money tour. We're not going to play the big venues. We're going to go out and we're going to just go and play probably the smallest venues we can actually possibly play. And we're going to play the new album. And that's what we're going to do. Because if we had any kind of, you know, I just remember thinking, look, if we had any kind of courage of our convictions, the only thing this band can do right now is take this new album to everyone and say, we're going to go out and play it. And we're going to put our shoulders to the wheel. You know, I don't care. You know, there's no ego. I don't need to be stepping on an arena stage or, you know, whatever. Like, I'll step on any stage. But what I want to do is I want to give these songs, you know, I want to put my heart and soul into these songs and do them. So luckily it sold out very quickly. And we're doing that. And that starts in a couple of days. We were in rehearsals yesterday, the last week or so. And it's really amazing because, you know, obviously we're going to play 10 new songs live on stage, 9 or 10, you know, probably 10. And, you know, we can play the old Razorlight hits, upside down, blindfolded, whatever, you know, it's an amazing thing. But we're having to like really work and figure out how to do it. And it's scary. You know, I don't know what we're going to see day one. You know what I mean? I hope, you know, I feel like I'm really proud of this album. I feel like this is an album that like will be cherished by Razorlight fans. You know, because I feel like it's up there with the first two albums, and it's got its own thing. I see this as a sort of dark horse cult classic Razorlight album, and we'll see how it goes in the years to come. And I can't wait to get out there and play it with the fans. But I'm really nervous.
Yeah.
You know, it could be anything.
Yeah.
You know, but you know, we have played 3 of the songs in the festivals, like coming up across the last summer, and they really sat there really, really well. You know, with the old stuff, and just even that on its own is like, as a band, is a massive like victory. You know, that's the kind of thing. When people ask me, like, you know, what the good parts of being in a band are, what you know, that's honestly the kind of thing that you really. That's when you feel the best, when you've got a back catalogue that everyone knows, and you know, there's loads of love for it, and then you put a new song in, and it just seamlessly fits in, like Zombie Love, like Scared of Nothing, and Dirty Luck, which are the ones we've done so far. And yeah, we'll definitely play some old songs and stuff as well. And yeah, I can't wait. I mean, it's coming. It's coming in 2 days. We'll see what it is. But you know,
and beyond
we've already
the
spoken about. Sorry, we're in the future. It's already happened. We loved it.
No, that's exciting to know about. And beyond the Up All Night show, back again with maybe bigger shows, but playing more of these new songs again. That's what I want to hear, basically.
Well, that would be great.
Yeah.
You know, and hopefully we get back out to Europe, and we get further afield and everything like that, and just get back to being a band. But my feeling for the moment is, you know, next year I've got the Jealous Nostril album, which I need to pop out because it's done, and people.
Exciting.
Which album?
The Jealous Nostril album.
Oh, right,
so
of course, yeah.
I hope people hear that.
Well,
so that's recorded. That's
done. That's done.
Excellent.
So obviously we were on a little bit of hiatus while Razorlight's happening, but my feeling with Razorlight is we're up and running. So I really hope that this then translates into another album and another album. You never know whether it comes or it doesn't. I feel like way back in time we managed to make 2 really good albums in a row, with the first one and the second one. And so my own personal goal is I've never managed 3 in a row.
Right.
So let's see this is 1 out of 3.
Yeah.
And let's see if we can get it in the next 2.5, 3 years. Let's see if we can like get that one, get that off my back.
Yeah.
That's one I've never managed. So let's see what we can do.
Excellent. It's good to have ambition. The last track on Planet Nowhere is April Ends. What can you tell us about April Ends?
Björn, take it away. I mean, this one came from you, really, if I remember right.
I think, yeah, I think so. Because basically, like, I'm always at home coming up with little riffs and stuff, and sometimes there's like a little vocal melody in there as well. And then we were just chatting about something else, and then we thought, like, oh, let's do a little hangout with guitars. So I just brought my old SG, popped up his flat, and he's got his little kind of writing set up with the old tape machine and stuff. Oh, and wonderfully, the same cheapo, crappy Casio keyboard that you had when you wrote Vice and Up All Night.
Yeah, it's still churning them out.
Yeah. No, that's the thing. There's all the rhythm you need for songwriting.
Yeah.
So I basically showed him some stuff I had, and then we just had like a little kind of writing thing, and it was really, really cool because he was just kind of piloting me a little bit. So we had like the initial thing, and then he was like, okay, but at the end of this, we should like come out to an E, just kind of stay to an E, go to the next bit. Then we was like, okay, play along here. And they're like, okay, and then here we need some sort of instrumental bit. And I just, you know, start with the first thing and then that little kind of instrumental guitar-y thing. And that just kind of came out like that.
Yeah.
So,
a nice co-write.
Yeah.
A good really classic co-write to a couple of people with the guitars. And I loved I don't know what it was, but something just kind of came out, like, you know, that the little chord progression and the melody that ended up over it, and I thought it was very, it was quite Scandinavian because it's very sad and happy and beautiful all at the same time. You've probably got a word for that, haven't you? Like when something's sad and happy at the same time, and it's snowing outside. No, I don't know. Maybe,
but
I don't know. It's so ingrained. It's just like, you know, like we can't say anything that's you know, if we feel something that's kind of purely happy and sunny, it just feels wrong somehow. There's got to be a bit of, you know, like...
There's a bit of melancholy in there. But yeah, no, I don't know. Yeah, April Ends. That was one, floating around and yeah, again, I mean, you know, Youth was a big fan of that one and really helped us push it through. And it definitely felt like it had to come at the end, you know. And you know.
Excellent. And it's a nice
sometimes,
way to
sometimes
end
you've got to know how to get out of the way of songs, and I definitely got out of the way of that one.
Yeah. And it's a nice way to end the record because it's different again. It's different from the other tracks on this album, I think, and gives us another taste of what Razorlight is all about.
So my twins, April Ends and Cyclops.
Right.
Forgotten the rest of them. That's great radio.
Johnny, Björn, thanks so much for coming in. It's great to speak to you. Great to speak to you about a new Razorlight album after all this time.
Radio X.